My fusion system, fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapter 481, The Ptolemy Family's Meeting. At the Ptolemy family's estate in the royal city. The Ptolemy family was different from the Campbells and the St. Laurent family. Due to the lack of geniuses in the younger generation and the fact that the Ptolemy family's primary industry was sea transportation, the Ptolemy family's home was at the floating city, while their branch family was in the royal city. Daniel, the head of the Ptolemy family, was sitting in front of a round table in the branch family's manor, holding a teacup and sipping tea. He was listening to the branch family members report on what had happened in the capital that day. Master Daniel, young Master Casey recently competed in the Royal Academy's competition in the capital, and he is now a well-known genius throughout the kingdom. In addition, young Master Casey obtained a dragon and rose to the rank of a dragon knight. I am familiar with young Master Casey's dragon. They are tall and powerful. My heart trembles just looking at them. The Ptolemy family has always ranked last among the three great families. With young Master Casey's great accomplishments, our future development may not be inferior to Campbell's and the St. Laurent family. The branch family members, led by a white-haired branch family head, praised Casey. Casey and Lana were standing behind Daniel. "Where were you?" Casey asked, scratching his brow. He tried to appear calm, but the smile revealed his true feelings. A pillow-shaped dragon lay on his shoulder, showing only the head of a bird and a large snot bubble drooping from his nose. He could not tell how powerful it was, no matter how he looked at it. Daniel set the teacup down and looked at Casey. The young man had accomplished a lot in the last few days, but the praises from the branch families were exaggerated. He had no idea how powerful the dragon next to him was. However, Casey was also a genius in the kingdom. He became a Platinum Tier elite after obtaining a Platinum Tier weapon. It would have been impossible for the original Casey to enter the top 16 of the kingdom without the aid of a weapon. If he had had to face anyone, he would have most likely been eliminated. Furthermore, that weapon was said to be Watson's creation. Casey had also advanced to Gold Tier thanks to Watson. He had done that with the Sun and Moon fruits. Those were not the most important. The main point was that Casey was Watson's subordinate and follower. That was the promise Casey made in the Holy Dragon Tavern. Many people in the capital were aware of it. In the eyes of the capital's noblemen, Casey had only been a wasteful squanderer. However, they had no choice but to hold Casey in high regard because of Watson's reputation. Daniel was initially unaware of the situation. He only found out about it after arriving in the royal city. He learned that his son, who had grown into a promising young man, was someone else's sidekick. His son had to rely on others to be kind to him. How could he stand it? He was also displeased with the individual who had reported to him in Watergate City. If there was a problem, he should have told him sooner rather than telling him what was good for him and making him happy for nothing. Casey's greatest accomplishment is related to Watson. Watson caused so much havoc in Watergate City, and now he is assisting Casey. What in the world is he thinking? Daniel muttered to himself. He had only arrived in the royal city. He discovered that things were not as he had imagined. Uncles and aunts, your eyesight is exceptional. That is a Platinum Tier sleeping bag dragon. It did awaken its phoenix bloodline after consuming Watson's phoenix egg in the dragon lair. It is said to be the only dragon in the kingdom to possess both the dragon and phoenix bloodline. Previously, my sleeping bag dragon outperformed Watson's god-armed dragon, Sebastian, in the Dragon Knight test. Based on my relationship with Watson, my dragon can grow even stronger if I were to ask him to assist me. Watson has a lot of good stuff in his hands. He also has the phoenix egg and water from the Spring of Life. I heard that he could use water from the Spring of Life to make a Platinum Tier potion to upgrade someone to a Platinum Tier angel. Stella of the Abeder family has been elevated to the rank of an angel. Many people in the academy are aware of this. It would be fantastic if he could provide me with such a potion. That is right. I am sure you have seen the battle that took place in the sky. According to His Majesty, a battle broke out because of the gods. It nearly ripped the royal city apart. Fortunately, Watson intervened in time to save the royal city. Watson even defeated the gods' projection. It is extremely enviable. I believe I can reach Watson's level if I can get to Platinum tier. Casey spoke confidently and boasted about himself. His words inadvertently elicited envy in Watson. The people from the branch families nodded in agreement. Case is truly amazing. He had established a rapport with a genius of Watson's caliber and even persuaded him to assist him. Do not say anything stupid. Watson is powerful because he has more resources. If young Master Casey had the same resources as Watson, he would be as powerful as well. No, he would be even more powerful than Watson. Someone must have noticed Daniel's face had darkened. He glared at the person beside him and quickly changed his words. Please accept my apologies for not agreeing on that point. Young Master Watson's strength is related to his resources, but those resources were obtained by young Master Watson using his own strength. There were some discordant voices amongst the crowd. Everyone's attention was drawn to the person who spoke. A young man with golden hair approached them. He was dressed in the distinctive blue clothing of the Ptolemy family branch. What is your name? Daniel's pupils constricted. Casey was there to spread the word about Watson's strength, which had given him a headache. He became even more enraged when he discovered that someone had opposed him. He went to the capital to hear people singing praises for Casey, not Watson. That is Geraint, Master Daniel. He is from the other side of the border. He was a member of our branch family who was dispatched to the border to serve as a mayor. He brought many border specialties with him when he returned to the capital. Among them is the Spring of Life mentioned by young Master Casey. Even His Majesty was moved. Geraint's introduction was cut short by the head of the branch family. He had an adoring grin on his face. Geraint has just arrived. He might have forgotten the Ptolemy family's rules. Do not be such a jerk. Do not bring yourself down to his level, Master Daniel. Are you from the border? Casey's eyes had already lit up before Daniel could respond. He moved quickly in front of Geraint and assessed him. Do you know anything about Watson's potion that allows a person to advance to Platinum tier? I know about it because I used the potion that young Master Casey mentioned earlier. Geraint nodded. He emitted a powerful aura. On his back, 6 pure white wings appeared. That is fantastic. That potion appears to be exactly as I predicted. It has the potential to propel a person to the Platinum tier. Do you happen to have any extra potions? If you do not have any, could you help me in requesting one from Watson? Casey's face lit up with surprise, and the light in his eyes grew brighter. He rubbed his hands together, requesting more. Daniel could not hold it in any longer at that point. He abruptly stood up and slammed the teacup in his hand onto the ground. Casey, go home. Take a look at yourself. What do you look like now? If you want to become a better cultivator, you must put in more effort rather than relying on the benefits of others. You can become a Platinum tier angel simply by drinking that potion. There could be severe side effects. You do not even have to put in a lot of effort to get stronger. How can such a good thing exist in the world? Chapter 482, The environment was too bad. Father. As Daniel suddenly lost his temper and fell into a rage, Casey seemed a little confused. His arms twisted around his body unnaturally, and he appeared to be at a loss. Geraint, right? You are a talented person sent by the branch family to be the mayor of a border town. I remember that there is such a thing, indeed. Has your term ended? You can go back to the border now. Daniel took a deep breath and said indifferently to Geraint. Even though his words were very tactful, everyone could hear that he was secretly banishing Geraint to the border. In other words, he did not want to see Geraint there. That made many people from the branch families look at Geraint with pity. Initially, they had wanted to curry favor with him because Geraint had Platinum tier strength and had a relationship with Watson. In the end, Geraint's words just made Daniel unhappy. Daniel had always stayed in the floating city and operated in the shipping industry. However, he was suddenly at the capital. Everyone knew what he was doing. He had heard of Casey's great feat and wanted to show off. It was not even Casey's credit but Watson's. Geraint could not even imagine such a simple thing. It's a pity. I had wanted to use Geraint's favor to build a relationship with Watson, but now it seems like it doesn't matter anymore. Watson was imprisoned in the dungeon because he was a genius and had too much pride. After returning to the royal city, he even contradicted His Majesty. I did not expect the people around him would also behave like that. Some of the people from the Branch family could not help but shake their heads. After experiencing the big battle in the sky, the Ptolemy family's manner was also affected. Fortunately, Daniel was at the capital at that time with a large number of guards. In addition, he hid in the manor at the beginning of the battle, so he was not even injured. However, because of that, Daniel did not know much about what happened during the battle. Daniel only heard that Watson had summoned his guards from the border, but he also had help from the sea folks and the dragons. He did not find it strange that Watson could do that. After all, Watson had let the sea folks and tens of thousands of slaves go when they were in the floating city. Perhaps the so-called sea folks that Watson had summoned were the slaves that had been let go. After that battle, Watson was pardoned by the king and was allowed to leave the prison. The interval between Watson's attack, the end of the battle, and His Majesty's pardoning was very short, but it was as if it had been planned long ago. It was not only Daniel who felt that way. The people from the other families also felt the same. No matter what, Watson was still the most powerful genius in the kingdom. There was no harm in trying to rope him into their family. However, after seeing Geraint rebuking Daniel, they dispelled the thoughts in their hearts. After all, they were part of the Ptolemy family. Before roping in Watson, they first had to live well within the family. Master Daniel, you want to expel me from the Ptolemy family just because I spoke the truth to protect young Master Watson? Geraint raised his head and asked in return. Are you questioning me? Daniel's eyes narrowed into slits. Geraint, don't say anything. Someone from a Branch family tugged at the corner of Geraint's clothes. Geraint did not care and shook his head. I'm not questioning the head of the family. I don't have the guts to do that. I'm just curious. But now I've roughly guessed his thoughts. I'll pack my things and leave the Ptolemy family. There was no anger in Geraint's expression. Instead, it was filled with disappointment. He had only been in the Ptolemy family for more than a day. During that time, he had found out about the conflict between Watson and the Ptolemy family in the floating city. He had wanted to resolve the conflict between the two, but Daniel's actions at that moment made him feel a chill in his heart. He did not feel that he had done anything wrong. On the contrary, Daniel had twisted the truth in order to show off his son. After being accused by others, he became angry out of humiliation. He did not have the bearing of a family head at all. There's no need to wait. You can leave now. Seeing that you're so protective of Watson, you should have a good relationship with him. I wonder if Watson will still take you in after he finds out that you've been chased away by the Ptolemy family. Daniel stretched out his hand and pointed outside the manor. Geraint, from now onward, you're no longer a member of the Ptolemy family. I'll ask Watson how he taught his subordinates. Seriously? He actually disowned Geraint. Looks like the family head is really angry this time. A group of people from the Branch families whispered to each other. No one dared stand up to Geraint. Geraint's face alternated between green and ashen as Daniel questioned him. He was silent and was about to turn around and leave when a youthful laugh suddenly came from the direction of the manor's entrance. Master Daniel, I noticed you got so angry the moment I arrived. Calm down. I'll be the one to instruct my subordinates. There's no need for you to worry about it. Everyone looked toward the direction of the voice and discovered that Watson was slowly walking into the manor. A fat man walked behind him, and he was winking at Geraint. He said, "Geraint, it seems like you are the same as me. You are not welcomed into the family either. I don't know if it's because I've been by young Master Watson's side for too long, but I feel bored when I look at those people who are trying to flatter me. It's not that it's not good to do so, but they haven't found someone worthy to serve. Their standards are too low." "Lupin, it seems that you have the same thoughts as me," Geraint replied and quickly walked in front of Watson. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "The mayor of Monty Town, Geraint, pays his respects to young Master Watson. I've made a fool out of you just now. Get up. I'm here to pick you up. Next, I'm going to give you and Lupin a few missions." Watson helped Gerard up. Then, he looked around and shook his head slightly. "The environment here is too bad. It's not suitable for you anyway. I'll give you two a decent place to live." The environment was too bad? Watson's words were like needles piercing the ears of the Ptolemy family members, especially when Daniel, whose face had already darkened. "Watson, I heard that you've achieved quite a bit in the capital and even obtained the title as the strongest genius in the kingdom. However, isn't it inappropriate to speak in such a tone in front of me? Your master and I are old friends. No matter what, I am your elder. Watson, you're here." Before Daniel could finish his sentence, Casey had already rushed forward and stood in front of Watson with a smile. "I've just told my family about you. I've only had good things to say about you. I wonder if you can give me a potion that can upgrade a person to a platinum tier angel. If you're willing to do that, I'll do anything." It was not just Casey. The sleeping bag dragon on his shoulders seemed to have seen his family when it saw Watson. It instantly left Casey and went to hug Watson's cheek and let out an intimate cry. That scene made the Ptolemaic family members feel a bit awkward. Daniel's face darkened like a piece of charcoal. Chapter 483, Building the Sea Folk's Stronghold. "What a little cutie." Watson reached out with his hand and patted the sleeping bag dragon on his shoulder. With a flip of his hand, 2 sun fruits immediately appeared in his hand. After the sleeping bag dragon happily ate them, he turned his gaze to Casey. "Casey, you said you'd do anything if I gave you a blessings from the gods and demons potion." "That's right, Watson." Casey nodded. "I want you to kneel and beg me. Is that even possible?" "That." Casey looked troubled. He turned his head to look at Daniel and the other members of the Ptolemy family behind him. It was not just Daniel, the other members of the Ptolemy family shook their heads. Asking someone to kneel was too difficult, especially for Casey. As the Ptolemy family's second young master, someone who might succeed in the position of the family head in the future, if he were to kneel before Watson in front of so many people, he would lose all his dignity. "Watson, your conditions are too difficult," Casey said. Just as everyone had expected such an expression, he said, "There are too many people here. Let's change to another place. I'll kneel and beg for mercy from you." Casey's words made everyone's jaws drop. A few people from the branch families almost fell down. Daniel's eyes were also filled with killing intent. "Casey, you're a disgrace. Come back here." Daniel came in front of Watson and said, "Young Master Watson, when you were in the floating city, you made a deal with the Ptolemy family. I believe that it is a friendly deal. This time, not only did you come to take Geraint away, you even humiliated my son Casey. What exactly is your motive? Do you have something against my family?" "Master Daniel, you are too serious. I'm taking Geraint away because your family doesn't want him. As for Casey, he can do whatever he wants." Watson shrugged. Daniel snorted coldly. "Watson, even if it is as you say, you still want my son to kneel in front of so many people. You are not giving me any respect at all. It seems like you don't want to continue trading with the Ptolemy family. The last time you helped build the gold tier ship, we agreed to give you a portion of the profits. I've brought the money, but from your attitude, it seems like you don't want the money. I'll give you two choices now. First, take the money that belongs to you, but you have to apologize for insulting my son. Also, you have to keep Geraint. I haven't punished him for contradicting me just now. If you can do what you did just now, I'll pretend that it did not happen. The second option, you take Geraint away. From now on, the deal between the Ptolemy family and you will be cancelled. I'll return the ship's blueprint to you. You can choose for yourself. Forget about apologies, Master Daniel. The Ptolemy family has already seen my blueprint and learned how to build a magic ship. Even if you return the blueprint to me now, you won't stop building it. Won't I be at a loss then? However, as a person with great magnanimity, I won't care about those gains and losses. The reason I came here today is to take Geraint away. I don't care about anything else. Watson spoke indifferently and turned to walk out. Geraint immediately came behind him and walked out with Lubin. Seeing that scene, the Ptolemy family members could not help but shake their heads, lamenting Watson's stupidity. For Geraint's sake, he had refused to continue his relationship with the Ptolemy family. Geraint was just a member of the Branch family. How could his value be comparable to the entire Ptolemy family? At the same time, they also admired Watson. He was willing to go to such an extent for a subordinate, even willing to shed all pretense of cordiality with Master Daniel. Every subordinate would want such a superior. While everyone felt conflicted, Watson and Geraint had already walked toward Ptolemy Manor entrance. Watson clapped his hands. Nia, is the matter settled? My honorable master, according to your orders, I've already spent 10 million gold coins to buy all the 10 mansions nearby. Nia descended from the sky as the king of angels with countless layers of wings on her back and a crown on her head. The powerful aura emanating from her body made everyone feel suffocated. Her words shocked everyone even more. They spent 10 million gold coins to buy every mansion in the vicinity. Is that for real? Some were the residences of high-ranking ministers in the kingdom, and some were the residences of other noblemen. Were those people willing to sell their houses? Exclamations rose and fell. The noblemen who could live around the Archduke's family were of high rank, and those residences were carefully selected. Even meeting the owner of those houses was difficult, let alone buying the mansions. Well done. Watson nodded and smiled at Lubin and Geraint behind him. I just said I'd give you a place to live in the royal city. Those houses were prepared for you. When he left the Abeder family, he had asked Nia to start buying those houses. As the eldest daughter of the Saint Laurent family and the kingdom's second genius, plus the money Watson had given her, those noblemen could not refuse her offer. Young Master Watson, we can simply find a place to stay in the royal city. 10 luxurious manors worth 10 million gold coins? It's truly a waste to give them to us. Geraint and Lubin looked at each other hesitantly. They were very grateful for Watson's good intentions, but as subordinates, they did not want Watson to spend money. As a superior, it's normal for me to care about my subordinates. Furthermore, I didn't say that only you are allowed to live in those luxurious mansions. Who else is living with us? Geraint and Lubin were a little puzzled, and at that moment, Watson clapped his hands once again. Crash! The sound of waves and the rolling sea descended from the sky. The 100,000 sea folk, led by Poseidon, descended. That scene shocked the hearts of the people there. Even the pedestrians on the streets looked at the scene with their mouths wide open. Well met, young Master Watson. Poseidon, leader of the sea folks, immediately bowed respectfully. The sea folk behind her did the same thing, swaying their fishtails to show their respect. Starting today, you will live with the sea folk and teach them how to function in human society. At the same time, I will construct a waterway between the royal city and the floating city. You can use it to pass goods between the royal city and the floating city and build an army. As Watson spoke, he extended his hand toward the outside of the manor. Fusion system, activate. Boom. With a loud bang, a huge palace appeared outside the Ptolemy Manor. The entire palace was made of crystals and floated in mid-air. There was sea water flowing under the palace, and there was a school of fish swimming inside. The blue sea water covered half of the city, replacing the original sky. Chapter 484, Let Me Kneel. Congratulations, Master, for fusing so many manners. You have obtained a Diamond Tier building, Torrent Palace. Diamond Tier building, Torrent Palace. Abilities, Ocean Creation, able to change any terrain you come into contact with into the ocean. Sea Water Barrier, a barrier formed by water elements that can withstand Diamond Tier attacks. Absolute Disintegration, when the palace is attacked, it will not be destroyed, but will split into smaller and more palaces. Sea Giant, using sea water to condense into giants to attack enemies. Additional ability, Tsunami Cannon, a magic cannon made from sea water. The cannonballs released can cause a tsunami. After Watson performed the fusion, a sea water palace appeared in the sky. He immediately flew into the air and looked around the entire capital. Near the western part of the capital, he found a flat ground and waved his hand at it. The huge palace in the sky immediately flew out and landed on the huge flat ground to the west of the capital. The surging sea water washed the land away, causing a huge pit to appear on the ground. The sea water filled the pit, and the palace sank into the sea water, leaving only the tip. That was not the end. After the terrain changed from the plain to the sea, the waterways washed away the soil, turning into rivers and streams that meandered further away. Initially, there were no large lakes around the royal city except for a moat. However, under Watson's methods, a giant saltwater lake that stretched for dozens of kilometers appeared outside the royal city. The waterways that spread out from the lake connected all the small lakes nearby, turning them into a giant network of rivers. Success! Watson nodded in satisfaction at the waterways that appeared around the royal city. On the one hand, he had asked the sea folks to go to the royal city so that he could use their army to threaten King Landar III. On the other hand, he wanted the sea folks to appear before humans officially. He wanted to start achieving peaceful progress between humans and the sea folks. At the same time, he also wanted to use the sea folks to build an army to expand his military influence. Isn't that spectacular? When Watson made his move, Geraint spread his angel wings and flew into the air, watching the changes happening around the royal city. He could not help but sigh. No matter who it was, they would feel shocked when they saw the land collapse and clear rivers appear. They would feel amazed when they saw the sky blue color on the originally endless khaki. With just a wave of his hand, a huge lake appeared outside the capital. That is the strength of the kingdom's strongest genius. People from the Ptolemy family also flew into the air and saw Watson's actions. They could not help but exclaim in admiration. With just a wave of his hand, he had changed the environment of a place. They did not know if Sword Saint Reed could do the same thing, but they knew that the power displayed in that scene had far exceeded their understanding. The purpose of creating all of that was because Watson wanted to help his subordinates find a place to live. Geraint and Lubin, you will live there. Later, you can go and see if you like it. Before that, I still have some gifts for you. Watson descended from the air and smiled as he flipped his palm. A golden book appeared in his palm, and 2 tubes of potions floated outward. These 2 potions are dragon transformation potions. After consuming them, you will become a Diamond Tier dragon, which will greatly increase your strength. The Black Moon Knights on Mount Creation have already consumed these potions. As mayors, you will have to consume them as well. Geraint and Lubin knelt with excited expressions on their faces as they looked at the potions in Watson's hand that emitted the aura of a dragon and surrounded the phantoms of the dragon race. Thank you, young Master Watson, for your gift. They had left Mount Creation and returned to their homes. They thought that they would be placed in more important positions with their families, but in the end, they were met with distrust and ostracism. On the contrary, Watson was able to give them great benefits that they had never dreamed of. Initially, they still had traces of nostalgia for their families, but that had completely changed. What family? In front of Watson, they were all trash. Rather than suffer in such a family, it was better to leave the family and become Watson's subordinates. Under Watson's encouraging gaze, Geraint and Lubin only hesitated for a moment before consuming the dragon transformation potion that Watson had given them. Roar! Roar! After 2 consecutive roars, Lubin and Geraint's bodies instantly expanded. Scales emerged from their bodies, causing them to transform into giant dragons. Geraint had transformed into a light elemental golden holy dragon. Meanwhile, Lubin had transformed into a sacred fire razorback dragon whose entire body was burning with flames. 2 dragons of different shapes and sizes, each with a body length of 100 meters, were floating in the air, exuding a powerful might that was even more astonishing than that of 100,000 sea folks. Those 2 have become dragons. Such a terrifying aura, even more powerful than the so-called dragon knights. What kind of potion can transform a person into a dragon? That's too powerful. The Ptolemy family members swallowed their saliva, their eyes filled with respect and greed. That was a dragon. As long as one consumed the potion, they would be able to become such a powerful creature. Even a platinum tier elite would be easily torn apart by the sharp claws of a dragon. Who would not want to experience such a feeling? Even though they did not know how that potion was made, Watson was willing to let his subordinates use it. It was apparent that it was not difficult to make it. They also did not know if they could spend money to buy it. They stole a glance at Daniel. Daniel had threatened Watson to cancel their trade relationship. Many of them felt sorry for Watson, thinking that Watson was a fool. However, they had changed their minds. Watson did not need to make any trade with the Ptolemy family because of his ability. A huge lake that stretched for dozens of kilometers had appeared outside the royal city, and with the sea folks, it would not be difficult to control the kingdom's water transportation in a short period. The Ptolemy family relied on water transportation for their livelihood. If something like that happened, one could imagine how miserable the Ptolemy family would be in the future. Everything has been settled. Let's go. While everyone was thinking that, Watson led Geraint and Lubin, who was back in their human forms, out with the 100,000 sea folks. Wait, Watson! At that moment, Casey shouted and ran in front of Watson. You haven't given me the potion that I asked for. Then one that can raise a person to platinum tier angel. How can you just leave like that? Oh? You still want to ask me for the potion? Aren't you afraid that you'll be embarrassed when you pay? Watson raised his eyebrows. I'm not afraid. Casey puffed out his chest and replied firmly, I'll kneel for you now. Oh, right. It would be even better if you could give me a potion that can turn people into dragons. If you promise me, I'll kneel and kowtow to you. If he did not need to do anything to become a platinum or even diamond tier powerful creature, he would kneel and kowtow to anyone. It would not be shameful to do so to become stronger. After making up his mind, Casey was about to kneel toward Watson when a large hand suddenly reached out from behind him and pressed down on his shoulder. When he turned around, he saw Daniel, who had an ugly expression on his face. Casey's expression was somewhat anxious. Father, are you going to dissuade me again? I admit that kneeling and kowtowing to Watson is detrimental to my identity as the Ptolemy family's second young master. However, you have also seen the potion in Watson's hands. As long as I take it, I can reach a level that I might never reach in my entire life. Father, I'm begging you. I don't want to give up that opportunity. Little brat, who's persuading you? Unexpectedly, Daniel did not scold him. Instead, he glared at Casey. He turned around and knelt on one knee toward Watson. He said, as the head of the family, I should be the one to kneel to Watson. It's not your turn yet. Watson, I apologize for my rudeness just now. We can have a good talk regarding your previous deal with the Ptolemy family and the potion that can turn a person into a dragon. Chapter 485, Fawning over him. Phew. Daniel watched as Watson and the 100,000 strong sea folks left. He slowly got up from the ground. Just a moment ago, he had kneeled on one knee to Watson and proposed to redo the trade plan. Watson discussed the details of the trade with him. In the end, they concluded that the Ptolemy family would sell the formula for the dragon transformation potion for him. However, Watson wanted 50% of the Ptolemy family's future sales. He also wanted the Ptolemy family to arrange for the sea folks to be legal citizens in the floating city and cooperate with the sea folks to build an army. Daniel tried hard to bargain, reducing Watson's demand to 40% of their profit. At the same time, when helping Watson to build an army, the Ptolemy family had the right to take a part of it and turn it into their own army, and the commission he promised Watson on the gold-tier magic ship would be given to Watson together with the money for the dragon transformation potion. At that moment, Daniel watched as Watson and the others left. His eyes flickered, and he remained silent for a long time. Casey walked to his side and said, "Father, I was worried that you did not understand the benefits of bowing to Watson. You resolutely refused to obey Watson, and you lost the opportunity to gain benefits for nothing. Now it seems like you haven't lost your mind, so I'm relieved." When Daniel wanted to stop him from kneeling to Watson, Casey had been very anxious. He thought about persuading his father to agree with him, but unexpectedly, his father took the initiative to kneel before Watson. He had always been useless, and he was said to be incompetent no matter what he did. As for befriending Watson, he was one step ahead of his father, which made him a little proud. After coming to the capital, not only had he become stronger, he had also become smarter. "Casey, don't speak now. My head is aching." Daniel turned around to look at Casey. When he saw the smug expression on Casey's face, he frowned and reached out to rub the space between his brows. "Father, what's wrong? Why do you have a headache? Are you sick? Why don't I find a healer to take a look at you? Or I can invite Watson back here. Watson has many novel things that can definitely cure your headache." "Casey, don't you understand? My headache is because of you. What's wrong with me?" Casey revealed a blank expression. Ever since Watson tormented him in the floating city, he had doubts about the young man. He had made up his mind that he would never oppose Watson in the future. At that time, he thought that he was quite cautious, and Daniel's subsequent actions had also verified his guess. No matter how tough Daniel was or how powerful the Ptolemy family was, it was nothing in front of Watson. As long as Watson waved his hand, he could make the Ptolemy family fall into despair. Watson could even make the entire floating city disappear. "Casey, as expected, I have too much hope for you. As expected of a fool. Even if he has great power, he is only a fool." Daniel shook his head and sighed. "Do you think I don't understand that Watson is very powerful? Do you not know the benefits of trading with Watson? But why didn't I trade with Watson in the first place? Instead, I only proposed the idea after the arrival of 100,000 sea folks." "Yes, why?" Casey was stunned for a moment and began to think. When Watson had arrived at the manor, Daniel could have proposed a deal with Watson. Even if his father had gotten angry with Geraint, it would not have affected the conversation between him and Watson. He knew that his father was a very shrewd person. He would never lose interest because of his emotions. After thinking hard for a while, Casey's eyes suddenly lit up. "I understand why you did that." "Oh." Daniel looked a little surprised. "What do you understand? Tell me." "You saw the 100,000 sea folks. The floating city used to be our base. Now that those sea folks have Watson's support, the floating city is very likely to be occupied by them in the future. In short, you are afraid of Watson." "I'm not afraid of him." Daniel slapped the top of Casey's head, his lips trembling with anger. Taking a deep breath, Daniel calmed his anger. He turned his head to look at Lana, who was holding a parasol and had been silent since the beginning. "Lana, it doesn't matter if Casey doesn't understand what I'm doing. You are smart, I know you'd understand. Tell Casey why I'm doing that. Yes, father. She respectfully agreed. Lana cleared her throat and said, Father did not show any intimacy with Watson just now and instead was aggressive toward Watson because this is the royal city, the territory of King Landar III. His Majesty hates people forming parties for personal gain. If he knew that the Ptolemy family had openly colluded with Watson for the sake of benefits, he would definitely be furious. If that's the case, why did Father choose to curry favor with Watson? He even knelt to Watson just now. Casey looked puzzled. To the Holy Dragon Kingdom's noblemen, kneeling was the highest form of etiquette. Knights usually used it to swear their fealty to the other party. That is because Watson created a lake in the royal city. At the same time, he also summoned 100,000 sea folks. Father changed his mind then. Such a thing had happened within the borders of the royal city, but His Majesty did not make a single move. Clearly, he tacitly approved of Watson's actions. After the gods' battle in the sky, rumors had spread that 2 princes had died in battle, and Watson was chosen to be the next king. I don't know if that is true. I think Father's actions just now were to confirm the authenticity of that matter. First, he reprimanded Geraint, who had come from the border, and then he found an excuse to quarrel with Watson. In that way, even if King Landar III found out about that matter, he would think that the Ptolemy family and Watson were not on good terms, and that would not arouse the king's suspicion. Then, when he found out that Watson had unscrupulously summoned an army of sea folks in the royal city without anyone knowing about it, he decided to apologize and bow to Watson, obtaining the benefits that the Ptolemy family should have. Whether the person in charge of the capital was King Landar III or Watson, the Ptolemy family still had some leeway to deal with them. Not bad. Daniel was delighted with Lana's explanation. He nodded in satisfaction and then glared at Casey. Learn well from your sister. Even though your sister is not in good health, she's 100 times smarter than you. The Ptolemy family has a high position and power in the city. However, the king can destroy us with just a word. If you want to live a more stable life, you have to advance. Yes, father, I understand, Casey replied unwillingly. Then, he muttered, after explaining so much, isn't it the same result? As long as you please Watson, everything will be fine. What's the difference? Daniel looked as if he was disappointed. He shook his head, turned around, and walked quickly in the direction of the mansion. Father, where are you going? I'm going back to the floating city. If I had known this would happen, I would not have come to the capital in the first place. You're an idiot, and you're really pissing me off. I'd rather work hard for another 20 years than look forward to your success. Chapter 486, A Kiss for Your Promise. That Daniel is quite interesting. Watson flew in the air and headed toward the direction of the Riptide Palace that he had just built. He could not help but chuckle. Young Master Watson, how is Daniel interesting? In my opinion, he is just like the head of the Campbell family. They are both short-sighted idiots who only know how to protect the dignity of the nobleman. Lubin, who was following behind Watson, snorted coldly. Lubin, don't say that. Geraint frowned. Then, Lubin said, why can't we say that? We are from the Branch family, but we have already obtained the strength of Platinum Tier at the border. After coming to the capital, we even brought many good things to the people in our family. Not only are those people not grateful, they even ostracize us. Is it because we are from a Branch family that they are afraid that we will usurp their power? Lubin, so in your eyes, those 2 family heads are like that? I do have a different opinion from you. Watson interrupted with a smile. What do you think, young Master Watson? In my opinion, whether it is the Campbell family's head, Armand, or the Ptolemy family's head, Daniel, they are not really targeting you and Geraint. It's not that they don't want to put you in an important position, but they don't dare to do it. What does that mean? Because you're from the border, and you're my subordinates. The border count has always had a bad relationship with King Landar III. If they put you in an important position, it'll look like they've been bribed by the border count, even if not true. Do you think His Majesty will suspect them? They're from an archduke family, yet they colluded with me, the strongest genius in the kingdom. If all the noblemen in the capital were like that, then King Landar III's authority would be unstable. Do you think His Majesty will allow that situation to happen? Watson's eyes flickered as he explained that. Just now, in order to dispel Daniel's worries, I demonstrated my power in front of him. I built a waterway outside the royal city that connected the surrounding area. I even summoned the sea folks to let him understand who controls the royal city now. Only then did he propose to discuss a deal with me and kneel to apologize to me. I was thinking the same thing too, young Master Watson. Since those people were the masters of the archduke families and stood out from the other noblemen, they were definitely not stupid. They treated us like pawns. If they want to blame us, they can blame us for being too sensitive. Geraint smiled bitterly and sighed. No matter what, the Ptolemy family was only using him, while Watson treated him as family. His previous decision to leave the Ptolemy family and become Watson's subordinate had not changed. So that's how it is. Lubin nodded in understanding. He had thought too little about it. He thought that the Campbell family simply did not like him. Well, if they did not like him, then the higher UPS of the family would not have allowed him to attend the meeting. They would not have agreed to return the 1,000 holy relics that were owed to Watson after he resurrected Augustus. Augustus had died because of the king, and the Ptolemy family was not stupid. Augustus could only return home to recuperate because of Watson. The only person who had entered Augustus' room was the healer sent by the king. The Campbell family should have been dissatisfied with the king, and Watson took that opportunity to reach an agreement with them. Lubin could not help but sigh at his own stupidity. It turned out that Watson had gone to the two families to look for them, not only to protect them, but also to negotiate with the heads of the two families, and he had actually failed to see through it. At the same time, he also became suspicious of the mission Watson had previously given them. Young Master Watson, you said that you wanted us to live with the sea folks and help them to live like humans. The matter is not so simple, right? Coordinating the sea folks' life and helping to build an army was not something that everyone could do. Even professional soldiers like the Black Moon Knights would be able to do better than them. Why did Watson choose them to do that? Lubin, I'm impressed. It looks like you've finally learned to use your brain to think, Geraint teased him. Shut up, Geraint. Don't speak to me like young Master Watson. While the two were quarreling, Watson said, yes, helping the sea folks is only one of the tasks I've given you. The other most important purpose is that I hope that you can continue to stay in touch with the Campbell and Ptolemy families. It's best if you can flip their businesses and clansmen to our side. The heads of those two families are old foxes. They've only reached an agreement with me because I've suppressed King Landar III. If anything happens in the future, it's very likely that they'll betray us. After all, their interests are more important to them. I want to make sure that they absolutely can't betray us. He had already suppressed King Landar III. He needed to infiltrate the kingdom's ministries and assimilate the kingdom into his own. He still needed to prepare before he could do that. So that's what you're thinking, young Master Watson, Lubin exclaimed. If someone had told him of such a plan, he would have assumed that person had gone insane. However, at that moment, he could only feel the excitement in his heart. It was not just him. Geraint also agreed. All right, I'll tell you the details of the mission I've given you later. As for now, you can rest well in your new home. Watson led everyone to the sky above the lake outside the royal city. This palace is so beautiful. Is this our future home? Many of the sea folks whispered to each other as they looked at the Riptide Palace. Their eyes shone like stars. From now on, that is your temporary home. The waterway here is connected to the floating city. I hope you can extend a portion of the Dragon Palace that will be built in the floating city to the royal city. That way, you can realize the short-term conversion of resources. My idea is to build such waterways in all parts of the kingdom so that the sea folks can freely travel to every place. At the same time, I will also propose to His Majesty that he declare the law on the protection of demi-humans so that the sea folks can walk on the streets openly. Watson's voice was not loud, but his words contained an exciting power. The sea folks cheered and said, "Long live young Master Watson! We will definitely fulfill your orders." Under Poseidon's lead, they began to move toward the palace. However, Alice did not leave. Instead, she went to Watson, grabbed his hand, and said, "Brother Watson, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Can I live with you instead?" "Alice, don't trouble young Master Watson." Poseidon frowned. Alice immediately bit her lip, and a look of grievance flashed through her round eyes. Seeing that scene, Watson reached out and patted Alice's sky-blue hair. He said, "Before the king declares the law to protect the demi-humans, you will need to rely on your magic to walk on the streets, Alice. It's not that convenient. I'll make an agreement with you. When the protection law for the demi-humans is introduced, I'll bring you to live with me in the capital. Then, it's settled then." Alice stuck out her little finger and hooked it with Watson's. Her eyes beamed like a crescent moon. Then, she gently swung her beautiful fishtail from the lower half of her body, making herself taller and closer to Watson. Her soft lips touched Watson's cheek, leaving a faint hickey on it. Then, Alice blushed and took 2 steps backward. "Brother Watson, I'm sorry that I was too excited. That is a kiss for your promise. After this kiss, you can't ever go back on it." Chapter 487, 7 Divine Dragon Stars. I did not expect Her Highness to be so bold. It would be great if Her Highness had kissed him on his lips. I feel that Her Highness and young Master Watson are a good match. If the two could become a couple, it would be a blessing for the sea folks. When Alice kissed Watson, the surrounding sea folks looked excited. Some even looked envious. They wanted to kiss Watson too, but they did not have the courage or opportunity to do so. Alice Poseidon stood still. Her expression looked conflicted. At that moment, Owen stood beside her and looked at Alice with a smile. "Poseidon, don't worry. I think that is a good thing. Since ancient times, the sea folks have never had any good results when they fall in love with humans. However, Watson is not an ordinary human. I think he would have the ability to make Alice happy. After all, he has changed things for the sea folks. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm concerned about an outstanding genius like Watson. He will always have many beautiful girls around him. Will Alice really be able to gain Watson's favor?" Poseidon muttered in a slightly worried tone. Alice was a well-deserved pearl among the sea folks. She was the dream lover of many of the sea folks' youths. However, in Watson's eyes, her identity as princess of the sea folks meant nothing. Watson was considered the god of the sea folks. Allow the young people to deal with their own problems. We can't stop them even if we wanted to. We just need to take care of ourselves. Owen coughed as he spoke and extended his hand to Poseidon. He wanted to put his hand on Poseidon's shoulder, but Poseidon rolled her eyes and avoided him. "What do you mean by taking care of our own problems? Owen, I don't think you care about Alice at all. You just want to make use of the opportunity to make a scene." "No, Poseidon, What do you mean? The most important thing is sending the sea folks to the Riptide Palace and then building an underwater dragon palace that connects to the water city. The important thing is to put away your miscellaneous thoughts first. What you said makes sense." After reprimanding Owen, Poseidon looked in the direction of Alice again. At that moment, Alice was already overwhelmed by the whistles and jeers of the sea folks. She turned around, threw herself into the water, and disappeared. "Let's go." Poseidon turned her head. Perhaps it was just as Owen had said, that she should not be too strict with her children. At least Alice looked very happy. "Let's go, Nia." After settling down with the sea folks and sending Geraint and Lubin to the Riptide Palace to familiarize them with the environment, Watson brought Nia back to the royal city. "Next, I'm going back to the Sword Saint's courtyard. Nia, you should go back to the Saint Laurent family as well. After leaving the family for so long, I'm afraid your family will be worried." "Yes, Master." Nia nodded. She spread the angel wings on her back and flew away in a flash. Meanwhile, Watson was flying in the direction of the Sword Saint's courtyard. While he was flying, he was sizing up the people below him. Even though the royal city had not suffered any damages due to the battle, many residents had been injured. At that moment, there were wounded people with bandages wrapped around their bodies everywhere in the royal city. The healers carried them to the various treatment residences on stretchers. There were also members of the Holy See who were running around the streets in high spirits. They sang Watson's name while announcing to the other priests that they believed in Watson and that he could obtain great power, even over his own family and friends. That caused Watson to feel a large amount of faith transferred into his body while flying on the streets, increasing his strength bit by bit. Lord Dragon Emperor. Just as he was enjoying that great feeling, he heard a voice from the sky. A few dragons, led by Fafnir, came before Watson. They were all dragon kings. However, there was no sign of Nidhogg, the Forest Dragon King, or the Dark Dragon King. "Lord Dragon Emperor, we have completed the mission you gave us. Next, it's time for us to return to the Divine Dragon Star. But before we leave, we would like to greet you," and the Light Dragon King, Odyssey, spoke hesitantly. He was interrupted by Fafnir. "Odyssey, why are you speaking so incoherently? Are you manly or not? If you don't dare to say it, I'll help you say it. Did you see that Lord Dragon Emperor had helped the sea folks build a lake dozens of kilometers away from the royal city, and that made you jealous? Would you like to ask the Lord Dragon Emperor to build you a divine dragon star for your nest?" "Fafnir, don't talk nonsense. I don't think that. No, I mean, can you be a little more tactful?" Odyssey scratched his hair in distress. He was right. They had almost 1,000,000 baby dragons on the Divine Dragon Star after the dragons drank the super reproduction potion. In order to create those sovereign tier dragons, the dragons' resources were exhausted. Furthermore, Watson had promised to build a Divine Dragon Star for each Dragon King, covering the entire world. He only wanted to urge Watson before he left. "A Divine Dragon Star? That's easy." Watson smiled and raised his hand to point at the top of his head. "Fusion system, activate." Following Watson's action, the stars that were hidden in the back of the sky suddenly fell down, turning into a few huge flaming meteors. The flaming meteors had yet to fall, but they had already brought intense pressure with them. Many people in the capital raised their heads and looked terrified after seeing that scene. The capital had just suffered a huge blow, and they would not be able to withstand another one. However, their panic did not last long. The falling meteorites in the sky turned into rays of light and intertwined together, turning into a huge star that hung in the sky. Watson fused one after another. Soon, 7 stars that were exactly the same as the Divine Dragon Star appeared in the sky. "Congratulations, Master! You have fused the stars in the sky and obtained 7 Divine Dragon Stars." Since his strength had increased to the peak of the Diamond tier, Watson's fusion ability had also evolved. Previously, he was not strong enough to fuse huge things, such as the stars. "I have fused the Divine Dragon Stars, you can each have a share." When he saw the light in the eyes of the Dragon Kings in front of him during the fusion process, Watson smiled slightly. "Everyone here will have one. Since Nidhogg, the Forest Dragon King, and the Dark Dragon King are not here, I will bring their Divine Dragon Stars back to them." Odyssey, the Light Dragon King, said with a cough. He spoke in a righteous tone. His words had just left his mouth when the other dragon kings rolled their eyes at him. You say that you are bringing the divine dragon stars back for the other dragon kings, but in reality, you just want to take all those divine dragon stars for yourself, right? You're just one dragon king, and you want to take 4 divine dragon stars. Aren't you a little too bold? Aren't you afraid that Nidhogg will find out about that? The Light Dragon King, Odyssey, puffed out his chest. Of course, I'm not afraid. In the past, Nidhogg was very powerful, but now, with the help of the Dragon Emperor, I've also advanced to the same level as a dragon god. I don't know who would win in a fight, me or Nidhogg. The Light Dragon King suddenly noticed that the expressions of the Dragon Kings in front of him were not quite right. They were staring strangely at him. He subconsciously turned back to look, and a cold sweat instantly broke out. He did not know when, but a man with clown makeup and a gloomy face appeared behind him. It was Nidhogg. Chapter 488, Return to the Sword Saint Courtyard. Nidhogg, when did you arrive? Odyssey swallowed his saliva, and his expression darkened. Around the time you said that you don't know who would win in a fight against me. Nidhogg's tone was gloomy. The Dragon Emperor wants to give me a divine dragon star. Even though I haven't said that I want it, it's still considered mine. If you want to take it without my permission, you are violating my rights. Let's find a place to solve that problem later. You shouldn't have bragged, Odyssey. You are finished now. The voice of a gloating woman echoed. A green ripple appeared in the air, and a tree that looked like the World Tree appeared in the air. Then, it turned into light spots and disappeared. The Forest Dragon King walked out of it. It's still uncertain whether you'll win in a battle with Nidhogg. Odyssey is really getting more boastful. There's no need for Nidhogg, I can kill you by myself. After the Forest Dragon King, another person appeared in the air. He had a thick black bamboo hat and held a huge sickle in his hand. It was the Dark Dragon King. Forest Dragon King, Dark Dragon King, why are you here? Odyssey looked like he wanted to cry. Didn't you say that you have something to do? We do have something to do. I'm in a hurry to go and meet up with the Elven Kingdom's army. After all, I promised the Elven King that I would accept their employment. It's not good for me to keep running outside. As for Dark Dragon King, I heard that he recently made an agreement with the Winter Nation and needs to rush back to help train their dragon knights. I'm not sure what's wrong with Nidhogg. The Forest Dragon King explained in a neutral tone, although there's something wrong, we're not blind. The Dragon Emperor created 7 divine dragon stars. We could see such a feat even if we were far away, so we rushed here. After all, no matter how important our topic is, it can't possibly be as important as the Dragon Emperor. Fortunately, we're back. Otherwise, we would not have known that you wanted to snatch our divine dragon star. Now, tell us what to do. The Forest Dragon King began to clench his fists. Lord Dragon Emperor, I suddenly remembered that my lair in the Dwarf Kingdom is on fire. I have to hurry back and put out the fire. Farewell. Odyssey was sweating profusely. He said those words to Watson, then turned around and flew into the sky. His body expanded and transformed into the appearance of his true form, the divine star-seeking dragon. He opened his huge mouth and swallowed one of the divine dragon stars. Then, he turned into a streak of light and quickly disappeared from where he was, flying toward the west. Odyssey, weren't you very proud just now? Stop right there. The Forest Dragon King followed him and flew into the air. She transformed into a divine nature dragon, swallowed the divine dragon star, and chased after him. After the remaining dragon kings obtained the divine dragon star, they each bid farewell to Watson and left. It took less than a minute from the creation of the divine dragon star to the time when the dragon kings took them away, and some people in the capital saw that scene. They saw the huge dragons and the stars that disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, they treated it as if they had seen it wrongly and did not care. After the dragons left, Watson stretched his back and said, the Black Moon Knights are under the control of senior brother Sylvan. They must have returned to Mount Creation through the spatial passage. I don't need to go and take a look. He had arranged for the sea folks and the dragons to support his army. He did not need to make any arrangements for the Black Moon Knights. He did not need to do anything then. With that thought in mind, a teleportation array appeared under his feet, and he arrived at the Sword Saint's courtyard in a flash. He had been busy during that period. He had been either in the dragon lair or in prison. Although it had only been a few days, he felt like it had been a long time since he had returned to that home. I wonder what my masters will look like when they see me? Excited? Did they miss me? While murmuring, Watson slowly pushed open the door. The moment he opened the door, a cold sword aura whistled toward him, almost cutting his neck in half. Fortunately, he was agile and stretched out his fingers to pinch the sword aura, or else he might have been injured. Raising his head to look into the courtyard, he discovered that Antonio and Reed were fighting. Antonio was holding a huge magic staff, and there were invisible threads of destiny around Reed, blocking the magic that Antonio had released. A luxuriously dressed old man stood in the center. It was King Landar II, who Watson had rescued. At that moment, he was standing outside the field to judge Antonio and Reed's fight. "Your Majesty, Antonio and I have been fighting for half an hour. In your opinion, who is stronger?" "It is me, right?" "Reed, stop bragging. No matter how you look at it, I am stronger. If it weren't for the fact that I was afraid of releasing too much power and damaging the capital, you would have lost long ago." "Antonio, stop bragging." While Antonio and Reed were arguing, the old man sensed Watson's arrival. He turned his head and looked at him. "Watson, you're back. It's good that you're back. Can you tell me who is stronger, Antonio or me?" It was Reed who had spoken. Watson was a little dazed. He subconsciously walked toward the old king and asked, "What's going on?" He thought that his two masters would be happy and excited to see him since they had not seen him for a few days. Who would have thought that his two masters did not miss him at all but were fighting with each other? "It's my fault. I came here not long ago. 20 years had passed since I asked the two of them which of them is the strongest in the capital. Then, they started to fight." The old king had an innocent look on his face. He sighed. Just for that? Watson did not believe it. It had been decided long ago about who was stronger between Antonio and Reed. Although the two of them fought, they had always been friends. There was no need to fight over such a small matter. "Of course, I also said that I would confer the title of the strongest war god in the kingdom to the stronger of them too. And I will fulfill one of their wishes," the old king said. As for the kingdom's former king, his words were still very authoritative. He said that if Antonio's wish were fulfilled, then any wish could be accomplished. "So, you've been playing tricks on them." Watson felt a little headache. He sent King Landar II to the Sword Saint's courtyard because he wanted him to help expose King Landar III's conspiracy and make him the king. He did not expect the old king to provoke his two masters into a fight. "Watson, admit that I'm stronger. Don't worry. My wish is very simple. That is to help you become the future king," Antonio said as he separated from Reed. Reed did not want to be outdone. "Watson, my wish is the same. Not only can I make you the king, but I can also make Tina the queen. Aren't I good to you? Now, tell him I'm the strongest." Since when did they judge a person's strength based on their good or bad deeds? The corner of Watson's mouth twitched, and a strange expression appeared on his face. "Masters, don't fight anymore. You don't have to do anything to fulfill your wishes. King Landar III has already announced that I am the next successor to the throne." "What?" As soon as Watson's voice fell, Antonio and Reed turned their heads to look at him. Even the old king opened his mouth and stared at Watson in disbelief. Chapter 489, Watson's Backup Plan. "Watson, you didn't tell me you were the future king. Antonio smirked. Certainly not, Master Antonio. Why would I deceive you? Watson responded. What happened, Watson? Why did King Landar III unexpectedly name you as the king's heir? Tell us everything. Reed came to a halt in his struggle with Antonio and rushed to Watson, gripping his hand as they entered the courtyard. He and Antonio had always hoped to assist Watson in becoming the next monarch. As a result, they indirectly approached many noblemen. It would take at least 10 years, according to their strategy, to get the backing of all those noblemen. On the other hand, Watson simply needed a month to do what they could not in 10 years, making King Landar III abdicate the throne. They were all curious as to how Watson had done it. Watson, Reed, and Antonio exited the courtyard, eager to find a private place to talk. How is it possible that Friar has picked Watson as the next monarch? The old king mumbled, the wrinkles on his cheeks squeezed together. Friar has 3 sons and a daughter. Watson has qualified to become the future king, but he can't become the king. Friar, what are you thinking? No, I will have to track him down and question him. The old king's eyes glowed with a tinge of evil. He dashed out of the Sword Saint's courtyard and approached the palace. When he arrived in the Sword Saint's courtyard, he had learned a lot from Antonio and Reed, including Watson's plot to usurp King Landar III's throne and how much power Watson possessed. He had intended to inform King Landar III, but a fight between gods had erupted in the skies and Antonio and Reed did not leave the courtyard. Antonio and Reed were preparing to leave after the battle to assess the situation. However, he exploited his statements to incite a disagreement, ending in a brawl between the two of them and their refusal to leave. The old king had no idea what was going on outside. He only wanted to stall the two of them and prevent them from assisting Watson. He concluded that Watson would be no match for King Landar III without the assistance of those two. When the old king departed the Sword Saint's courtyard, Antonio and Reed escorted Watson to a quiet chamber. Antonio and Reed shut the door as soon as they entered the room. One of them released an energy barrier to firmly surround the pillar in the room, preventing any sound from escaping. He turned his head to look at Watson after that. Watson, wait, should I inquire whether you are Watson? Antonio and Reed raised their heads, one after the other, each with a solemn expression on their face as they stared at Watson. Their eyes glowed with suspicion. If Watson did not respond to them, he would be killed. Masters, what is the matter with you two? Watson extended both of his hands in greeting. King Landar II has been delaying time by inciting us to fight. On the surface, we appear to be arguing, but in truth, we have been paying attention to what is going on outside. The conflict was on a godly scale. There are only 7 gods in the kingdom, aside from you and the young girl from the Saint Laurent family. King Landar III invoked the kingdom's 7 gods, and you are now the king-to-be. There is not any explanation for that. He never does anything that is not beneficial to himself. It is difficult for us not to assume that is his aim. He didn't think twice about summoning the kingdom's 7 gods simply to hand the throne to you. According to my best estimate, King Landar III performed those things to inhabit your body. So, Watson, are you still alive? Reed's threads of destiny encircled Watson, trapping him from the front, rear, left, and right. He made that assumption not just because of his extensive knowledge but also because Watson had previously divulged a part of King Landar III's plot to him. Watson had also established a backup plan to avoid him from being occupied by King Landar III without anybody noticing. It was not that they did not want to aid him, it was just that they could not materialize in the way he had planned. Of course, I am Watson. I will show it to you, my 2 masters. Fusion system, Watson said as he stretched his right palm toward the thread of destiny. As his voice faded, the thread of destiny and Antonio's crown staff transformed into rays of light that entwined in the air and transformed into a magic staff consisting of barely noticeable threads. It was blazing with the original power of the separate elements. They united into a massive crown, at times retaining the stance of a staff and at other times transforming into threads of various colors that meandered throughout the space. Congratulations, Master, for merging 2 Starlight Tier items to make a Peak Tier tool. Peak Starlight Tier 2, the Fusion, Thread of the Dual God. Effect, contains all the abilities of the Thread of Destiny and the Crown Staff. Additional effects, Fusion Imprint, through the connection of the Arcane Peak line, the ability of the tool can be given to different people, allowing them to gain the power of the Crown Staff and be under their own control. Fusion Creation, creating a mysterious creature with strength comparable to that of a god. The ability was considerably more significant when the 2 Starlight Tier tools were fused. The tool allowed the owner to become a crown mage, but it could also be used to turn other individuals into puppets. It also possessed the strength of a crown mage and the ability to construct magical beings akin to gods. My power is fusion magic. Do you think I am Watson now? While he was playing with the fusion thread in his palm, the strands containing the original energy fused in the air were transformed into elemental beings with a hazy starlight aura. Some of the creatures resembled dragons. In contrast, others resembled asteroids that had been compressed many times, releasing a tremendous aura. Their bodies were linked to the threads and were under Watson's control. Watson, the king most likely desired to possess your body because he admired your fusion abilities. If you are King Landar III, utilizing that ability is pointless. Reed was impressed when he saw Watson's fusion talent, but he quickly shook his head. It makes sense. I don't have any viable options for proving myself right now. Even if I tell you anything you are unaware of, it will be interpreted as an invasion of my memory to acquire your trust, right? If that is the case, I shall leave now. In fact, I recently finished building a Riptide Palace for the Sea Folks. If that does not work, I shall move to the Dragon's Divine Dragon Star. After the fusion, I shall reclaim the Peak Starlight Tier tool. I will also take away the other weapons in the courtyard, so you don't have to worry about them injuring you. You don't have to prove it, Watson. We know you are Watson. Antonio abruptly nodded. I believe that as well, Reed replied. Why do you believe me, Masters? Watson was dazed as he noticed Antonio scratch his non-existent beard and giggle. Watson, if you are King Landar III, it doesn't matter if you use the weapon to entice us or your fusion magic to threaten us. King Landar III will not be able to reclaim the weapon. Yes, you'd take away our weapons after fusing them, and also the other weapons. Watson's stingy approach was undeniably his. Reed nodded. Watson was rendered dumbfounded by his statement. Is that how you determine my identity, Masters? Is that how you think of me? Chapter 490, The Queen's Grave. At that moment, in the palace. Your Majesty, Watson had just used magic to create a massive lake on the west side of the capital. It seems to be connected to the Water City. In addition, Watson had placed 100,000 soldiers around the lake. What should we do? A person who looked like a general asked as he knelt on one knee. His expression had darkened. The Sea Folks and humans' relationship had never been harmonious in the past. Many humans had captured the Sea Folks as slaves, and the Sea Folks would occasionally sing on the sea's surface to lure the humans into a shipwreck. The appearance of 100,000 Sea Folks outside the capital would impact the royal family's authority in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. I have already announced Watson as the future king. Therefore, Watson's actions are no different from mine. Next time, there's no need to report such matters to me. You may leave. King Landar III waved his hand. Yes, Your Majesty. I understand. The guard wanted to say something, but when he saw King Landar III's determined expression, he could only clench his teeth, bow respectfully, and take his leave. At that moment, King Landar seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Wait a moment. In the battle just now, the Dragon Knight's captain, Julius, died in battle to protect me. We can't be without a captain for a day. Let Watson be the new captain." Report this to the soldiers and the dragon knights. After giving the order, King Landar III watched the soldier leave. At that moment, a man's voice suddenly came from beside him. King Landar III, you appointed Watson as your heir. You also changed the kingdom's church system, allowing Watson to replace the 7 gods. Now, you even made him the Dragon Knight's captain. That doesn't seem like something you would do. The man who spoke was none other than Sylvan. He had been accompanying King Landar III to monitor him. Sylvan, you know me. After all, we've spent a few years together. It's too harsh of you to say such words. Seriously? I used to be miserable because I thought I knew you. Avril said that you're a cold, heartless, selfish person. Sylvan sneered, his eyes full of killing intent. Taking a deep breath, he hid the killing intent in his eyes and said, I followed you to the palace to prevent you from doing anything harmful to Watson. On the other hand, I also wanted to see where Avril was buried. Tell me, where did you bury Avril? Come with me. After a short silence, King Landar III led Sylvan deeper into the palace courtyard. On the way, they passed by a garden in full bloom. Queen Isabella was with Kiana. Each of them was holding a watering can to water the flowers. After seeing King Landar III and Sylvan, the 2 women put down their things, came to the 2 of them, and bowed. Greetings to His Majesty and His Excellency. Father, uncle. Kiana held Isabella's hand and bowed respectfully to Sylvan. She stole a glance at Sylvan. She had long heard of that border count. The most important thing was that Sylvan came from the border. They said that he had a good relationship with Watson, who was also from the border. She had seen the battle in the sky, but she was not strong enough to see it clearly. She had only vaguely seen Watson's figure. She had wanted to leave the palace and find a closer place to watch the battle. However, the palace was protected by many guards, not even her mother could not go. They could only choose to water the flowers there. While Kiana was sizing up Sylvan, the older man glanced at Isabella and Kiana. There was no emotion in his eyes. King Landar III, this is your wife and child? When you were with Avril, you promised that you would not marry anyone else in this life except Avril. What bullsh*t? Sylvan's words made Isabella feel awkward. She waved her hands around her lower abdomen, seemingly at a loss. Sylvan, I have never forgotten the promise I made in the past. However, as the ruler of a kingdom, I am duty-bound to carry on the bloodline of the royal family. I have let Avril down. Now that 2 of my 3 sons have died, I have let my ancestors down. King Landar III sighed, his expression sorrowful. Your Majesty, what did you say? Our sons are dead? When did that happen? Is that true? Isabella held her breath and reached out to grab the corner of King Landar III's shirt. She had been watering the flowers with Kiana. She did not know what had happened outside, and no one told her. Our eldest and second sons had died, Isabella. That is true. King Landar III explained with a flash of pity on his face. Isabella could no longer hear him and stumbled backward. If it were not for Kaya supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. How did they die? I am saddened by their deaths too. Life, old age, illness, and death are all fated. As the queen, you must not show such panic. If outsiders were to see it, it would damage the dignity of the royal family. Also, since I've already told you the news of our sons' deaths, I'll let you know one more thing. I've just confirmed Watson as the kingdom's next king. King Landar III, Sylvan said, his voice containing a warning tone. It was easy to guess the relationship between King Landar III and his wife, telling her about the deaths of the 2 princes and then about Watson becoming his heir. As expected, Isabella's eyes instantly turned red. Your Majesty, why did you let our children die and establish Watson's foothold in the kingdom? We have another son and a daughter. Did Watson do something to you? I saw the battle in the sky. The palace would have collapsed if it weren't for the protection of our guards. Did Watson cause the deaths of my 2 sons? It has nothing to do with Watson. I'll go over the details with you later. Before that, please move aside. I have something important to discuss with Sylvan. King Landar III's majestic tone brought Isabella back from her irrational emotions. She gritted her teeth. Even though she looked reluctant, Isabella still pulled Kiana toward her. Don't just stand there, Sylvan. King Landar III did not even look at Isabella. He took Sylvan and disappeared into the depths of the flowers. During that process, Sylvan looked back and saw the hatred in Isabella's eyes. Even if King Landar III said that matter had nothing to do with Watson, Isabella would not believe it. As he thought of an opportunity to tell Watson about that, Sylvan followed King Landar III to the deepest part of the flower bush. The deepest part of the flowering shrub was different from the outside. There were no colorful flowers there. There was only one type of flower that bloomed. It was a strange flower with 3 colors: red, yellow, and blue. Pansy is a flower that generally blooms in the forest of eternity. It's also Avril's favorite flower. It's rare that you still remember it and plant them on such a large area. This is my sister's grave, right? There were no tombstones or prominent graves, but Sylvan was sure that Avril's body was buried there. King Landar III nodded. He waved his hand, and the ground in the garden immediately parted, revealing a huge coffin inside. It was a crystal coffin. A beautiful girl lay in it. Her platinum hair fell behind her head, and her pointy ears were hidden in the strands of her hair. Her skin was almost transparent, and one could vaguely see the blood vessels. Her eyebrows were groomed with love, and her hands were placed on her chest. The gorgeous pleated dress she wore did not have a single wrinkle on them. She looked like she was only sleeping.